I would like to call to order the Wednesday, April 23rd, 2014 Metropolitan School District of Washington Township School Board meeting, and let the record show that all 5 board members are present for tonight. And before we start, I'd like Mr. Brannigan, if you could lead us in the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first agenda item for this evening is the approval of the consent agenda. Dr. Woodson.
Thank you, President Turner. Members of the school board, I would like to recommend that you approve the consent agenda for this meeting, which includes the minutes of the April 9th, 2014 regular meeting. It also includes a payroll calculation summary with a claims docket in the amount of $4,085,063.05, an HR report with certified personnel containing 2 maternity leaves, numbers 55 through 56, 4 retirements, 22 through 25, 3 resignations, numbers 34 through 36. Also a classified personnel report with 3 new hires, 224 through 226, 2 resignations, 99 through 100, and 1 termination, number 3. I have 1 non-competitive grant to present to you this evening for your approval. It is the Perkins, which is a non-competitive grant that supports updating, improving, and enhancing J. Everett Light Career Center curriculum. No gifts or donations this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson. Board, any questions?
Mr. President, if there are no questions, I would move that the board approve the consent agenda as presented by Dr. Woodson.
Second?
It's been moved and second. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Next item is superintendent's announcements.
Yes, in your board docs, I have an exciting launch of summer wellness programming for the entire district. Any staff member is welcome to participate. I have been thrilled, not always participated, but thrilled with the offerings from our wellness committee this year from the district. You see the calendar of June in board docs, and board members are certainly welcome to participate.
Thanks.
You're welcome. We are in the midst of our school board visits, and it is a delight to have school board members who are actually interested in seeing classrooms in action and having good conversations with principals, so I just appreciate everyone's time with that. It means a lot to the buildings when you come out and actually see teaching and learning in process. We are also in the midst of all of our standardized testing with ECA. Mr. Brannigan may shiver when I say the word. ISTEP coming up, and we're going to do our best. If we have issues, as has been the headlines, as of late, we will deal with those as we have last year as they come up in collaboration with DOE, but we anticipate hopefully a smooth testing situation. We also have upcoming, which I will put in your weekly newsletter from me, the 5th grade exhibition. It will be the focus of my May Soup Scoop. This is a large culminating part of IB for our primary years program at the elementary level. And I described it to a parent. It's like when I completed my master's, I had to do a master's thesis about something that was of interest to me and that could have an impact in education. And this is the same thing that we're asking of 5th graders to do extensive research on something that may impact their community or their surroundings. So we're very excited about 5th grade exhibition coming up. Also, we will launch our Personal Best Road Show, giving out awards to students who qualify in 1st through 8th grade next month. And board members are welcome to attend any of those award programs with me. It is a highlight of my May. And we just finished, moments ago, our Washington Township Advisory Council. We were thrilled with the turnout, and we had broad-based stakeholders. I had everything from community organizations to parents to students to administrators to teachers participating tonight, giving each division feedback on some big topics that we have coming up next school year that will inform our leadership and our planning for next school year. The notes of which I will get to you. Mr. Kite attended as the liaison to Washington Township Advisory Council, but I think the notes and the feedback would be of benefit for all school board members to see. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson. Board, tonight's not a normal recognition night, so we don't have that on our agenda. And because of the section that we're in under announcements, what I would like to do is make a special announcement, if that's okay with the board. Today, for those that don't know, is Administrative Assistants Day, and we have one of the best administrative assistants out there. So as a board, we would like to say thank you, not only by verbally saying thank you, but just a little token of saying thank you and appreciate all you do for us. And you're also welcome to have one of these nice pins, too.
Come around and shake every hand.
Thank you very much. The next agenda item is item D, academic focus, and that would be Mr. Brannigan and Mr. Doss. Okay.
By way of intro from Mr. Doss.
President Turner, members of the board, and Dr. Woodson, we're here this evening to respond to a number of questions, and but also to give you an opportunity to hear some things about North Central and things it's doing. Oftentimes we focus on things related to ISTEP and whatnot, which are obviously elementary, middle school pieces, but obviously North Central is a big part of our district, and ultimately is where all of our students land and are able to hopefully, and we're hopefully able to prepare them for the next stage in life. So it has a critical role in our district, and Mr. Brannigan is here to speak to those things tonight, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have related to the topic.
Members of the board, Mrs. Sutton, I share with you that I love the recognition, but I would be amiss if I did not say that I think I have the best administrative assistant in the district, and Mrs. Compassi. And please make sure you tell her that next time you see her that I said that.
It's on
Before
record.
I start into the report, I also like to share a moment of celebration, several moments of celebration with North Central. This Saturday, we just completed 2014 prom, which was the largest that we have recorded in the last 15 years. Well over 800 participants in the junior class. To their credit, it was a beautiful, beautiful event sponsored by the Junior Class Council. We also celebrated Recognition Night on Monday, where we gave out over 500 awards to deserving students, grades 9 through 12, presented not only by the school but also by members of the community, and also retired teachers who have awards named after them, and monetary awards that our students receive. And this Friday, if the opportunity presents itself, if you would please show up to door 24 on the west side for the Rockin' for Riley, where student bands will be performing to raise funds for Riley Hospital. This year's unique in that we are bringing in food trucks. We have 6 food trucks who will be providing hopefully good eats to our students and fans. We're spreading the word not only to North Central but throughout Washington Township, trying to solicit all sorts of donations and opportunities to support Riley Children's Hospital. So I share that good news with you. And as always, you're more than welcome to stop over because there's always something to celebrate at North Central. Most recently, in responding to the graduation rate that came out from the DOE, I shared with Dr. Woodson that we are currently in, I hate to use the word, but dispute with the DOE from the numbers that they supplied to us in October to the numbers that just most recently came out. There's a discrepancy of close to 3% in the graduation rate. We've been in communication with the DOE. Their most recent reply came late yesterday, in which they tried to explain to us how they came up with different numbers than the numbers that they originally supplied us regarding graduation rate. We have responded in kind, asking them to identify the 15 students that they say were in the cohort that now they're saying are no longer in the cohort. So we are in discussion with the DOE regarding that. I believe you also received information about our waivers at North Central High School. North Central still provides the fewest waivers in Marion County when it comes down to ECA, because we believe and still believe, and I believe our community still believes, that North Central diploma means more than simply the principal waving his wand and granting someone something that truly they haven't earned at that time. And we were at 6.4% waivers this past year. Of all the schools our size or similar size, again, leaps and bounds below the others. However, with that stance, I will not say that if a student is deserving They've met the criteria that we've established regarding attendance and regarding remediation, regarding jumping through all the proverbial hoops that we provide. We are more than willing to grant that waiver to any student who qualifies. So I share that with you, although we take pride in the fact that we don't give it away at 19%, 20% as other schools do. That's because, again, after 20 years at North Central in multiple positions in the building, I believe that that diploma means a lot. And it also makes a statement to the universities that when you receive a North Central student, this is someone who is not simply going to enroll in your school, but someone who's going to graduate from your university. So I share that because in a snapshot to the media, I'll be honest with you, I have concerns when I just simply see numbers. What do those numbers mean? We went back and we did some searching, because we had about 88 students who had an impact in the cohort of 2013. That cohort is that whole 4-year process. And we went back and we found the students who left us in 2011 and those students who left us in 2012. And the overall graduation rate is not a reflection of simply 2013, but the 3 years leading up to that. And by the time we hit 2013, May of 2013, we had already lost 60 students as dropouts. Now, where do those 60 come from? And I provided you information. A student who receives a certificate of completion, we had 15 of those students considered a dropout. Students who earn a GED, we had 2 in that cohort who had earned it by that point. Those are considered dropouts. We know exactly where they are and where they went. And I'll be honest with you, we may have even encouraged them to pursue educational opportunities elsewhere. If that included Job Corps, where they earn a GED, that is a dropout. Retained still in school, 55, meaning we have students who are still trying to earn their high school diploma. And some will not graduate until 2014. They'll walk across the stage this May. Unknown, we had 6 students out of in 4 years where we could not identify where they went, their no-shows. And that totals up for us 78 dropouts, which hits us again on the graduation rate. I shared a little bit about the dropouts, the unknowns, the GEDs, students that are not allowed to return. We also had that category where I had 6 students over the course of 4 years who were expelled for a variety of reasons, who we did not allow to return to North Central. We said they had to pursue their academic opportunities elsewhere because their presence in the schools or North Central caused a major distraction to the learning environment. And without going into details with those 6 individuals, and they're not all one incident, it's over the course of 4 years, but we felt as an administrative team from 2 different principals that these young people needed to pursue opportunities elsewhere. Students that the state are going to, if they go to another school, they withdraw from us, say they're going to another school, provide the proper paperwork, but they never enroll in the other school. For us, that's a dropout. A student who leaves the great state of Indiana, for a variety of reasons. Obviously, the parents have made that decision. They don't notify us. We call the numbers. We send people to the house, vacant, phone disconnected. That's a dropout for us. A student may be enrolled in the great state of Illinois or Michigan or Mississippi or whatever it may be, but because they did not share that with us and we can't find them, for us, that's a dropout. Our action plans, 2013 found us focusing. We were most concerned with ECAs when it came down to student participation. We took a 0.5 penalty on our English ECAs as a result of student participation. So our focus last year was on student participation. And we received or earned the results that we wanted, and thus a higher letter grade from the state, where North Central earned a B from the great state of Indiana. We also focused 2013-14 on decreasing our suspension rate, our expulsion rate, and as you've heard from other board meetings, we've decreased our suspension rates by over 50%. We've decreased our expulsion rate by over 50%. And at no time were we lowering our expectations. We had a philosophy shift. We did not want to take advantage of punitive opportunities to simply punish a child for a misbehavior. We wanted behavior modification. And how do we do that? We took the old adage that idle hands are the devil's playground, so therefore we need to find something for them to do. So we made partnerships, reestablished partnerships in our community, from retirement communities to the Humane Society to food banks to the list goes on. And with parent cooperation and communication, we were able to keep these kids in school, therefore they're not missing out on instruction, but the opportunity to put them on a Saturday or after school contributing to their community. And we have seen and appreciate the shift that we've experienced with our students who truly take advantage of it. And the best experiences are the ones where the parents right there with them, where they're either providing the transportation or they're volunteering right there with them. So we've seen success with that, and we're decreasing our suspension and expulsion rate. Moving into 13, 14, 15, still have some areas that concern us in regards to certain supports. We're looking at our Learning Center, which at one point was nationally recognized for creativity and the supports that it provided to students. Because of budgetary concerns and needs, we've had to decrease those hours over the last 3 years. And we are trying to find ways by which to provide additional supports before school, after school, provide tutoring, both with our primary teachers and also with paid tutors to still support our kids. But as you saw the information I provided you, we've seen a decrease in about 3 hours just from last year per day in hours of operation. Another area of concern is that we've got to find new and inventive ways by which to provide opportunities for our students who fall behind, and even the behavioral concerns. We started utilizing what we affectionately call Form 16A at North Central. We hadn't used that before. Form 16A is when a student gets to the point of potential expulsion from school. Rather than go through an expulsion hearing, we meet with the parents, and through conversation, working with a counselor, we will provide that student with technology-based educational services, either provide them with a laptop or if they already have access to that at home, but we will provide them with online courses. And currently we're using Novanet as our primary source. Although it helps by keeping them connected to at least 2 courses, and the majority of students who are in this process, and we had 20 slots that we made available, and currently I think we're up to 8 students who are in the program. We're only offering 2 courses, and most of the students were well below a 2.0 when they found themselves in this predicament. It keeps them connected to school, but it does not replace school. Prior to this year, if a student were expelled, they had very few limited options. But now we're at least providing this. I believe that we need to expand our offerings at North Central to provide true alternative opportunities for our students, so that if a student finds themselves by their choice and their behavioral patterns in a position where they've fallen so far behind, what can we do not just to catch them up, but provide a placement that allows them to be much more successful. And I'm not saying remove our kids, send them elsewhere to other districts, et cetera, but I am saying that we need to reevaluate as a school the services that we provide for these students who don't fit perfectly into our mold. And those services may include a school-to-work program, a bigger push towards some of our CTE opportunities, along with an alternative placement. So these are things that we are currently looking at to keep our kids connected at North Central. Predictions for next year, or the class of 2014, if everything stays constant, our range for graduation rate is 84 to 86%, barring the DOE coming up with magical numbers again. But we are looking again at 84 to 86% support programs. We are continuing the Bridge program, which is I think now in its 4th or 5th year. With the cohort program, which we've had years of success with. We've added something new called JAG, or Jobs for American Graduates. We are in our first semester of support with them. We communicated first semester that we were interested. We had multiple meetings. We now have a full-time person in the building. We're very fortunate that Angie Olive is with us. Angie actually completed her coursework to be a counselor as a student teacher at North Central. So we're very fortunate that she's familiar with the building and our scheduling and et cetera. But JAG is working on life skills, academic skills, communication skills between home and school, and also working on potential job placement. Part of that JAG program, they also take, right now we're working with, we've got targeted 40 students, juniors, who are working with her. It's similar in many ways to the old graduation mentor that we had at North Central. But Angie is doing a lot more than we ever could expect out of her. Next year we'll be adding more students to her. She'll have juniors and seniors on her caseload. But she has one actual class time with the 40, so it's 2 periods for her. But she has access to every classroom. She has access to sit down in faculty meetings, in department meetings, address specific concerns related to her students. And so we're thus far pleased with what we're seeing out of this program. But again, we're in month number, 3 or 4. But they've given us a commitment that they're with us again next year as we expand the program. Bridge and cohort, as we look at those programs, and I pick on those, I could throw in there Avid, I could throw in there Read 180. We've got a litany of opportunities. And I've also provided, I provide my staff every marking period for these support programs. I provide them with a GPA breakdown of where we are. And it goes on after every marking period. And then we also take that to the PLCs, the specific professional learning communities, and the PLC takes the time to look at it and go, what are we doing right? How do we compare to the last marking period? And then we change it up. You'll see on there's some athletic groups on there, and the ones that you have in front of you are the most recent additions for the spring sports. In the fall, we had all the fall sports on there as well, but the mainstays are Cohort, Avid, Panther Quest, and you'll notice that Panther Quest, and I sell this to my faculty, I sell it when I address the middle school 8th grade visits, that if you'll notice, the PQ kids, incoming freshmen, newcomers, outperform those students who do not attend Panther Quest or the freshman class at large. And that's a big selling point, and I share with them that's why we push it, that's why we provide transportation, that's why we recruit you to attend from the middle school. Because we still see, after all these years, and that's an old program, we still see success from Panther Quest. And so with our programs, and again, we have more than I listed there, but we monitor those with depending on which group it is. Some of my groups have bi-weekly meetings. I call them PLCs or secondary PLCs. Your primary PLC would be your content area, be that in math, English, etc. And your secondary may be one of these support groups. With the support groups, for example, Cohort, I have 2 counselors dedicated to the program, and their role during homeroom, is to go in and visit. Sit down one-on-one with the kids and give them the attention that they need. And that's one of the reasons why that program still continues its success. Bridge has blossomed more from just academic to now that they are so civic-minded. The Martin Luther King Day of Service, the Bridge students, along with their friends, represented close to 200 North Central students volunteering their time on a day that they were out of school. And I think that says a lot about the program and also about the character of the people who are working with these young people, that it's not simply about the academics, but it's also about being a positive and contributing part of this community. So I applaud those programs for their efforts. And finally, looking at, again, our ECA, just some things that we did. I thought that last time I had the opportunity to speak to the board regarding these issues, we talked about better communication with parents. If attendance was our issue, not simply preaching to the students, but we also need to talk to the parents. So we started sending letters home to those students who were, for starters, ECA retesters. Then we started hitting the ECA first-time testers. We hit them with robocalls home, making sure parents understood. We have a robocall going out this Sunday, for example, as we move into the English and algebra ECA testing. Well, that's mostly first-timers going in there. We're talking the little things about going to bed, getting something to eat before you come to school, or take advantage of the school breakfast that we have here. So we did a much better job of communicating with parents. Our retester numbers, or when I say retesters in this instance, I mean those people who missed the first day that the test was proctored. Those numbers are down. We built in retesting days. Up until last year, we did not have retesting days built in. And now we do, because if we're going to truly attack our participation percentage, we've got to have those built-in retesting days. So for 13-14, a lot of those plans, I mean, we're in late April, have already been implemented, have been utilized, and we will find out here in the next couple of weeks if we reap the benefits of those efforts.
When
Modification of hours, Monday is our big day, to be quite honest. That's the day that we have teachers staying late, and that's our big day. The first few days, I had additional buses in wait just in case, but then I realized I was dealing with seniors who haven't seen the inside of a bus in a while. But from our west exits, and that's where student parking is, once that window hits at 3:50, and that's an hour after school's over, you just see a large number of seniors, and that's a polite way of saying of a lot of seniors. The majority of people taking advantage of seniors. I would love to see more underclassmen taking advantage of it. We still have our 4:15 late bus, but I still need to see more underclassmen taking advantage of it. We have 2 more weeks of taking advantage of this system. Administratively, we added a component that comes out on Thursday and or Friday, where we provide tips to teachers in our faculty bulletin as to what they can do with the extended time when a student shows up. We were fearful that certain teachers would be bombarded, and we were correct that our AP classes were hit pretty heavy, which is good. Right? You can't complain about that. But we also, I need to see more of my CP kids. And we sent 3 weeks, 3 weeks of robocalls home, reminding parents Sunday evening that this opportunity was there to take advantage of it. I'm still a little disheartened, again, in my CP or college prep courses, that I don't see more. There's teachers who had students coming in the morning, still have students coming in the morning. And we were willing, rightfully, to work with our teachers. I have about 7 who are on an individualized schedule, just because we made this change after we had agreed to certain hours to start the year. And so to accommodate some of those teachers' parents, they're coming in on Tuesday. So although we publicize Mondays, I tell them you need to make sure your kids know that your day is actually Wednesday in this instance, that you're going to stay late to support them. So that has worked out well. Our hours in regards to PLC hours, our ECA hours, I'm sorry, not ECA, but too many acronyms, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Our ECA, our MYP, and our PLC hours, meetings are taking place. I have 2 departments, 2 PLCs and departments who have combined their hours. They wanted even more time, and they communicated that as a group, and this is a group, one is a group of 12, one's a group of 8, where they asked could they stay late instead of coming in the morning to get some work done. They were at critical points and they needed more time. Not a problem. I'm never going to fight somebody who wants to give a little bit more. And so that's worked out for us. But that communication's got to be there. And I share with my folks, you got to communicate with your department chair, and then I want the lead teacher and the department chair to come in and share with me, because I don't want to put a teacher out. I don't want to do it just because it's most convenient for you, but if this is best for teaching and learning at North Central, then we'll work together and we can make it happen.
Mr. Kite.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Brannigan. That's all very helpful. I just wanted to ask a question about the kids. I certainly understand. I think the board has asked questions to show all of us understand about the concept that there are some disciplinary infractions that you can commit that are so serious that they're deserving of an ultimate punishment or an action that protects other students, et cetera. Of the kids who are using or are permitted to use or are asked to participate in the NovaNet recovery program, is there a reason, forgetting for the moment about the issue of access and if they can, if they have plenty of opportunity and could pay the costs associated, why we don't make available other classes to them? I know you said you'd like to do that, but is there a reason why it's limited to 2 and why we can't offload some of that? I'm not a big fan of outsourcing everything, but why we can't outsource it to some other provider so that the burden is not as great on us and we, but at least in theory, until we figure out whether they can afford it, push that burden onto a parent to be able to have to deal with.
The clientele that finds themselves in that predicament, in regards to their academic success leading up to that ultimate decision, well under a 2, closer to a 1.0. And we could very easily load them up with 5 classes. but we're trying to set them up for success. And we want to make sure that these young people have some glimmer of hope that, yeah, if I earn these 2 credits, I get to go back to North Central. We could put more of the burden on the families, and we could do more online courses where we actually charge them through IU Online, BYU Online, et cetera. But those classes are averaging about $250 to $300 a class. And we have made the decision that that's a burden that's not realistic for our students.
And the reason I ask is, and I acknowledged in my question that I know expense is a big part of it, but if there's some other options available, certainly it sounds like you're struggling to find it, because you've said you'd want more, and it's like all things, there's a difference between 2 and 5 classes, and there are things in the middle, and as the father of college students, kids who have approached college in different ways, and one who's kind of taken his time, I think there's a magic to getting people done while they're still inspired to get done. So I'm just curious about trying to resolve if there's anything that we can do.
Well, we've explored, in regards to part of that catch-up program, as you're aware that we've added some online opportunities in summer school at a very, very reduced rate, along with traditional summer school. And this, as part of that counseling service that we provide to the students, working with their counselor, working with administrators over at JEL as well, part of that counseling includes the conversation pieces about summer school. Those things that we have control over that are cost effective. We know that we've had success with the traditional summer school, and we're also allowing you now to take online summer school, some courses. You get 2 in the Form 16A, and then you have an opportunity to earn 3 to 4 other opportunities or credits in summer school, traditional and online. So for us right now, that's the direction we're going into this summer. We are actively looking for other opportunities. And honestly, I believe that we're going to have to create our opportunities. And it'll be a board meeting similar to this, where myself, and along with probably my APs, will be presenting to you our conclusions in regards to what we believe we need to do. Because we'll have to make changes at North Central. And what that looks like, I don't know yet, and I'm not prepared to share. I have ideas, but I don't want to plant the wrong seed and you act upon it. But we know that we're going to have to make some changes from what we've traditionally done for a non-traditional student.
I have another question, but I'll wait for other board members.
Any other questions? Mr. Jazwan? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see Ms. Benoit.
To ask more questions about the Novanet and the students studying at home. I know it's very, very, very difficult to be stay on task with all the distractions that's possibly in their homes, to get on the internet and actually do that work. How successful are the students who are doing that?
We've had 1 student thus far, and again, we started realistically in late January. I'm sorry, late January. We weren't here in January. February. We've had 1 student. He completed the coursework in 4 weeks. Okay. He completed in 4 weeks, but he also, his GPA going into this was a 2.7. Was a 2.7. So he was a solid student who just continually made poor decisions in a traditional environment. So he will earn more than 2. Once he completed the first 2, we provided him with an additional 2. Okay. So completion, we're that carrot, if you will, to get him to move forward. But again, the students who are 1.2, 1.4 GPA, 0.9 GPA, we're struggling. We're going to fight them to get 1. Now, there are supports, 1 credit that is. There are supports. We have dedicated personnel who are making personal contact with parents. They're logging on and checking to see the progress, because we can monitor where they are. And if I find out that Cole Brannigan isn't putting forth any effort, he's got the computer, we provided him with Wi-Fi at home, and Cole Brannigan isn't doing the work, I can look online and see his progress or lack thereof, and that's when I can make the call home to mom or dad. We're also using technology. We simply call it a robocall when it's the entire district or entire building, but we're also using cell phone technology to send text messages directly to parents about progress with students.
We also know that connectedness makes a big difference with them, and do the students feel connected through technology versus a person? And is that going to make a difference?
The connections, the true connections, were provided between 7:25 and 2:40. The true connections were the teachers and the counselors and administrators who were available to them on a daily basis. And because of that decision with drugs, with a weapon, or just aggressive behavior, historically at North Central, there was no connection at all after that. And this is it ideal compared to being a school full-time? No, it's not ideal. But it is still an attempt to keep you academically connected to North Central. And with the 2 people who are dedicated to this program, and we've got 1 in my building and 2 in JEL dedicated to these 8 students, with those meetings, with those connections, with those calls, it's not the same as being at school full-time, but there is a connection.
So they talk, it's not just your calls to the parents.
Correct.
There is calls to the kids directly. That's
All
what
to the- yes,
because
ma'am.
I heard you kept saying it was to the parents, but the kids get that connection also.
They get the connection, but we still find that resistance.
Yeah.
Where it's, we've gotten to the point where when we assign someone through that program, and step 1 is that you're actually sitting down with an assistant principal and your grade level counselor, you're meeting with both. We've gotten to the point where when we decide to put you on a Form 16A, parent agrees to it, we ask, and we're filling out the paperwork, and we ask mom or dad for the phone number. We're to the point where we're calling that number while they're sitting in our office. Because early on, we ran into bad numbers. And so we are making that connection right there on the spot. And the same response you just gave with that little laugh is what most of the parents are doing now. Oh, you don't, oh, okay, I see what you do at North Center, I get it. But we're trying to lighten the moment because it's not a happy moment because that conversation starts off with, we're here because. And we've not found any resistance from the parents. They're ecstatic that their child's not being expelled. But we always leave the door open for the opportunity to come back. We want you back. And how are we going to get there? What is it going to take? And I'm very fortunate that my upperclassmen seniors are not putting themselves in this position, but that was something we were worried about, was how do we, if we have a senior whose behavior warrants a removal, we don't want to put them so far behind that all of a sudden now they've got to make up an entire semester. Or if it's just one class that you need to graduate, then this is the direction that we're going to go.
Mr. Dzwana.
Just out of curiosity, if the numbers that you feel are correct were used to calculate the graduation rate, how would that differ from the DOE reported?
For 2013, we'd go up about 2%, 2.5% from where we are. We would still, with the numbers we ran with in October, we were still looking at a 2% decrease, 2-3% decrease. And we originally attributed that to 22 seniors. Each 7 seniors is equivalent to about 1% of our graduation rate, depending upon the year. And we had 22 seniors who were 1, 2 or 3 credits away from graduation. And they didn't earn it by May, which is ideal, you know, for seniors. They think if it doesn't happen in May, then it doesn't happen at all. So we, with our counselors, made contact with parents, told them what session of summer school they could go to earn that particular class, because not every session of summer school offers every class. We had students who didn't show up. We had 21 of them who didn't show up. All right, then we made our contacts in August. My counselors are back full time. We made our contacts in August with the same families for those who still had phone numbers and communication that we could still make. I went so far as to offer that North Central would pay for the online course. For those who accepted, we enrolled them and said, all right, here we go, folks. You just need this one class or that second class. We had one who finished after October. And October for us is the magic date. That's the date that you still are counted in the cohort. And so, okay, I still have 21 seniors lingering out there. And I attribute it to this, and that's for those of you who've worked in buildings or in education a long time. When you deal with older folks, high school age, I don't know, but sometimes they think they know everything. And right now I have some 21 young people out there who are working hard in our community, hopefully, but working hard, not realizing the limitations that they put upon themselves by not completing that one course. I anticipate this summer or next fall some of those 21 to come back and say, hey, how do I do this? I'll ask my registrar that they want to go and pursue higher education, but they still are short one credit. What do they have to do? I also provided you information, and it was buried in there a little bit, that over of those dropouts I had, over 80% hadn't passed both parts of the ECA, which is very concerning. And again, that's over a 4-year period. But at some point, for my young people, they'll come to the realization they need it, because we find ourselves with 19, 20-year-olds who are coming back asking us, how can I get my North Central diploma?
I wanted to ask about the use of the JAG. I can't remember what it stands for now. But with juniors and seniors this year, juniors next year, and seniors. And is that to address that kind of a concern where you've got folks very close and you want to make sure they get that little additional, or why did you choose not to use that resource person early on to help freshmen and sophomores, or are we already addressing that through the alternative? Forgetting the name of that program as well, the alternative.
It's CTS, North Central Technology School.
Thank you, technology school. Please.
We couldn't have used JAG before because we just got on board in February. And they're trying to catch it, and you hit it right on the head. We've got these freshman interventions, sophomore interventions, but when we get to that upperclassman, junior, senior, we don't have much. And so they're trying to catch them as juniors, start there. And ultimately, if the program goes well, ultimately we may go down to the sophomore level, and we are specifically targeting these students based upon their attendance, based upon their test scores. And when I mean test scores, I mean standardized test scores, their overall GPA, and we're trying to catch students who are on that bubble. And while they're still on the bubble, so that they don't fall so far off that the kids can't see the light at the end. And with all of our programs, be it JAG, or not JAG yet, but be it Bridge or Cohort, when we catch them early and they have success, they believe that, well, I don't need this program anymore because I can do this. I understand it. And I know I'm speaking in generalities, but this is just a trend, and we have to convince them why they still need the program. You have success because these supports were in place. We can't force people into the programs, but we have to be able to show them and market to them why this program is successful. And you'll see that cohort over the 4 years, well over 100 kids. And you see their GPAs are from a 3.2. I think the lowest cohort is a 3.0. But these are young people who we're targeting from our middle schools to take advantage of our AP courses, our ACP courses. Seriously consider our IB program. And we start talking with the parents about that. And I know I switched gears in regards to our clientele, but one of our selling points is we talk about scholarship opportunities. For some of our young people, the finances of college is just, well, I know my parents can never pay for that. And so with the cohort, we start talking early in Bridge about resources. And with our college mentor, and Susie Bremen, we start looking for those money opportunities as early as their freshman year. And so we're digging deep to find opportunities for our kids. Digressing for a moment back to JAG, or Jobs for American Grads, we will see where they go, because they also have their own counseling services that they provide, and college financing opportunities and workforce opportunities that they present. That comes in their senior year. The majority of that comes in their senior year. But the mentoring portion of it right now is a junior, next year, junior, senior.
Okay. 2 quick follow-up questions.
No, go right ahead.
Are you
Finish-
sure?
Finish.
Okay. Looking at the numbers as you break down, the 2 largest groups are the retained still in school at 55 and the dropouts at 78. I was wondering, of the 55, do you know how that breakdown looks between gen ed, or are these a lot of our English language learners who came in maybe as refugees and are really were starting at a low base and that's why they were retained, or they so I was curious if you had any of those numbers. And on the dropouts, is there anything that state law allows us to do that can help us to ensure that they re-enroll before, can we not release them as a student, or release transcripts, or I'm just curious, it seems like the school is being held responsible for those students. Do we have any ability to ensure that they re-enroll as they ought to, or are we just being held responsible as the school district when it's a decision the child and the parents choose to make to not re-enroll?
Your latter statement is most accurate. We have a withdrawal process, which is standard. Family comes in, if they fill out the paperwork, which is awesome, and they'll tell us that they're going to school A. Perfect. We fill it out, we sign off, hand it to them. It's called an exit interview. They take the form. They are supposed to go to the new school because we provide them with an unofficial transcript, we provide them with current grades, etc. The best thing that happens for us is a request for information from the receiving school. That means the system worked perfectly. If a family says that they're going out of state, same process, we'll receive the request for information. Perfect. It's when the person withdraws, leaves the state, stays in the state, and we never hear anything else. Therein lies our big problem.
And I have a follow-up there. That's the one that I was saving. And it fits here, otherwise I wouldn't interrupt if that's, I don't know if that was, I mean.
I'm done now. I'm sorry.
And I'm not trying to interrupt Dr. Hill, but this relates to that, so we do try to have some
But
order.
and I do hope, Mr. Brannigan, if you're not able to tonight, and I apologize, I didn't get the question about the 55 retained students and their breakdown, if that's something that you need to provide later, that's fine.
My question relates to, and I assume as good a job as you guys do with this, that probably we've looked at that, or we do it, or it's cost prohibitive. Are we talking about that many students of the ones who move and the process doesn't work? You go to the house, moved, left no forwarding address, and they could be one of our neighboring townships, they could be Illinois or Ohio. It just seems to me that it gets harder in this world to go off grid, to use, to be off the grid. It seems harder and harder to do that. You need a social security number, or at least the last four, to do almost anything nowadays. Is there a way to go to kind of troll for those students, and are we talking about very many, since only 7 students can change the rate?
In Indiana, we use what's called an STN, or student testing number, and that's how we track them. And when you go to Ohio, they use something different. And when you go to Illinois, so it doesn't transfer. That social security number, yes, but the STN, which we track them by in Indiana from school to school, you can't enroll in an Indiana school without that STN. Whatever your STN is at North Central, it's the same when you go to Pike, Ben Davis, et cetera. And so we can track them through the STN, and sometimes we have to hunt them down that way, which is fine. But it's when they leave or they do not enroll somewhere. But even if they, let's say that they, we use the social security number, they're still in Indiana, did they enroll in school? If they did not enroll in school, or if they took a year off and enroll in school, they're still part of that cohort. Social security number, we don't track them by social security number. We have no method by which to insert social security number. We insert the STN. And so that's one of our biggest drawbacks that there is. And I'm not advocating for national STNs, but it would make it a little bit easier for me.
I think you are advocating.
Dr. Hill.
Mr. Brannigan, I know historically the high school has played by the waiver rules to the T, and I know that hasn't always been the case with others. Going back to when you were talking about the waivers in comparison to graduation rates, you threw out a number in the high teens as being far more common, and we are 5-6% of kids who genuinely meet the criteria set up for waivers. Is that is that pretty consistent and common among other high schools in relationship to fudging, if you will, the waivers?
Good question, tough question, as I'll be talking about my colleagues' process. And we're dependent upon one another. Data is taken. When I took over as principal, I found myself on the Amos Brown show, and not a place I wanted to be. I loved that opportunity to talk to Amos Brown. And Amos Brown asked me on the air, Mr. Brannigan, why does North Central, can you explain why North Central doesn't have a higher waiver rate. And when you're a first hour principal, you can pretty much get away with anything you say. And my response was, I guess the real question is, why does everybody else have so many? And that changed the entire nature of the conversation for the next 45 minutes to an hour that I was on the show. My colleagues, the ones that we compare ourselves to, or that compare themselves to us in a lot of ways, they have certain resources afforded them through alternative placements that have realistically helped them out, alternative schools. And for those few who remember Washington Township's Phoenix program, Washington Township was a leader in the area when it came out with that concept. And for a variety of reasons that obviously is no longer here, but other schools, districts have picked up on that. And so as I look at a school district to our west who have just as many, if not more, students than us, their cohort is smaller than ours when it comes down to graduation, because those students have been taken out of the cohort and they're now in an alternative program. That happens to the southwest of us, that happens to the east of us, and that provides them an opportunity. If you take a look at the waiver percentage over the last 5 years, you'll notice that 4 years, you'll notice decreases. For them, drastic, still high for us, because they have alternative programs, alternative placements where they're taken out of the cohort. And so they may start off with the same number of students as I do in the class of 2014, but through attrition, they're able to remove these students from the cohort, alternative placement, and all of a sudden and there's nothing, they're not doing anything wrong. Not doing anything wrong. They're playing with the cards that they're dealt. But yet, as I take a quick glance, a school district to the east of us is over 10% waivers. A school district a little bit south of that, almost 15% waivers of its graduating class. A large district to the west of us, 13% waivers. And there's absolutely nothing wrong. Whatever their community is comfortable with and whatever their diploma means. It was about 3 years ago that we participated in a study with IUPUI, in which through our student social security number, they couldn't identify to us anything other than percentages, where we got to see the college retention rate for North Central grads over a 5-year trend data. And we got to see it compared to the rest of Marion County. North Central High School grads were in college or graduates after 5 years at over 80%. And that's unreal, that compared to other districts who were looking at a 30%, 40%, if they were lucky, 60% retention rate in college after 5 years with either a diploma or still in. Moment of celebration that I would love to scream from the mountaintops, and I'd love to see front page. However, part of the reason, or part of the participation agreement was what? Privacy. School districts decided, no, we don't want this information made public, but we will participate if you keep that just for this room, and we'll just use the data. Now, that's the data I want, because I am guaranteed not trying to create the best high school student in the great state of Indiana. I want to create some of the best college students and college grads. And again, forgive me for moments of bluster, but we very easily could raise the graduation rate. I can give you 15% waivers tomorrow. And some young people will falsely believe that they're going to go to college, CTE opportunities, career opportunities, and they'll be shocked. The story that I love to hear is when the graduate comes back and either A, says college was a heck of a lot easier than high school, or B, they say, you know what, I didn't understand why you guys were doing what you did. And I'm not saying that these other schools aren't producing good kids, because they are. But they're not producing the same quality or caliber kid. And we look at, I'm not graded on my ACT scores or my SAT scores. We ought to take a look at that data to see where we are, and look at the percentage of our graduates who sit for the SAT, who sit for the ACT. When we take a look at our National Merit finalist in Marion County, North Central, a school that has all sorts of whatevers, it's amazingly, we still lead the county So, and I share it because after 20 years, you actually like the place. And you take a little pride in it, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Kite?
So a related question, because everything you said resonates obviously with us when we hear it. The challenge and the problem is that people make decisions. Unfortunately, you want your numbers to have integrity, but they make decisions based upon numbers. We know how many parents make very thoughtful searches about recommendations to make to their kids about colleges. And unfortunately, make rather simplistic, engage in a rather simplistic analysis where they just look at certain numbers and they don't really dig down into the number, they don't drill down on what's really going on. So how do we get that message out there when we obviously, we don't want to make it a war with all of our fellow townships, I get that. So how do we get that, because it's obviously not something that the Star, with its diminishing resources and readership and everything else, wants or ever has really paid attention to. So what do we do? How do we
We've got to be our biggest cheerleaders. And when I say we have a North Central, and I share this with our faculty in regards to something as simple as your casual conversations in the grocery store, casual conversations at social events. Biggest cheerleaders administratively, how do we get the word out? Some years ago, I made the mistake of living in Hamilton County and got something in my mail that talked specifically about one of their schools. And it talked about the highlights of what was going on. North Central has done that over the years, but we got away from that within the last, 5 years. And that's a talking point with myself and Ellen Rogers in regards to, I know the district does a good job, but the high school needs to become a better cheerleader for what happens at the high school. Today in a simple correspondence with Dr. Woodson, I'm mid-meeting with something and we're texting, and I just start rambling off the different scholarships that my kids have earned over a 4-year period here in the class of 2014. I ramble off some of the awards. I can ramble off real quick the awards that my teachers have won. Now, obviously, I've got Teacher of the Year, but I've also got Teachers of the Year in gymnastics, Teachers of the Year in aerobics, Teachers of the Year. Little things that, and I hate to say this, we sometimes take for granted because we're expected to win. We're expected to do these things. Dr. Milliman shared something, a little tongue-in-cheek about, hey, let's not forget that you're 3-time defending brain game champions. Well, you know what? There's a $7,000 check that WTHR and their sponsors provided North Central High School for the 3rd year in a row for that brain game, winning as it did. There's certain little things like that that, again, sometimes we take for granted because it's just, this is who we are. But if sometimes we need to think about what if this, you don't know who we are. And all you know is there's that gargantuan-sized building on 86th Street that you drive by. What's going on in there? And that's why we put those banners up there. And I know that some members of our community go, why do they keep putting championships on the front of the building? Well, advertising. What are we going to send home this summer to make that commitment as we start looking at enrollments, out-of-district enrollments? That's why I send Kim Dickerson, my guidance department chair, I send her to the parochial schools, to their fairs. That's why I send my coaches to the different out-of-district events, not just simply to recruit athletes, but I need them to see that North Central cares. And that's part of our little things like that, that recruitment. And you walk around in your North Central gear and you show up. That's why we have our Sunday open house for the out-of-district folks. That's why we moved our open house up, because other schools moved theirs up, trying to recruit some of our kids. And we wanted our folks to see us first. So there's little things that we can do, and there's bigger things that we can do with in regards to mailings home, to in-district, out-of-district, making appearances at the parochial schools that surround us. Because we're not only competing with we're not really competing, and I say this with all sincerity, with the MSDs. I'm competing with the privates, the parochials, and I'm not looking for the best athlete. I'm looking for the best character, the best person, and the person who best represents our values as a district. And when I have those speeches and conversation pieces with parents, the door is open, come on in. It's many a tour that end up in my office. I didn't know that that was a designated spot of the tour, but you never turn them away, and you have to work through some myths. It's so big, I heard that this happened here. Really? Well, let's walk down the hallway. Let me tell me what you see. And As many of you have seen on many occasions when you walk down the hallway, I don't want anybody to feel anything but that they're in a place of learning while at school.
Thank you, Mr. Brannigan. Appreciate the report. Obviously, it's a real big subject for us and for you, obviously. So we appreciate sharing that information. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is time for comments from the public. So if there are any members of the public who would like to speak, now is the opportunity. All we ask you to do is step up to the podium and state your name and address. And seeing none, we will move on to the next item, which is our first action item under F. Approval to submit petition for Common School Loan Fund. Mr. Licata.
Mr. Turner, members of the board, Dr. Woodson, in your board folder, you have a petition to submit to the State Board of Education for an advancement from the Common School Fund in the amount of $1,009,700. That amount is derived by taking our grade 1 through 12 ADM from the February count and multiplying it by $100. Our ADM count then was 10,097. If the loan is granted for the advancement from the Common School Fund, it will be used for a computer refresh at 4 elementary schools, Fox Hill, Greenbrier, John Strange, and Spring Mill Elementary. And those dollars would be used to purchase approximately 1,400 to 1,500 computers for those 4 buildings. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Kite.
I've asked this item is on the agenda just for the public so people know. How do you determine the elementary schools where you want the technology to end up as opposed to the other schools?
Our Director of Technology has taken care of that for us and identified those 4 elementaries for this particular advancement from the Common School Fund. We're on about a 5 to 7 year refresh program across the district, so it would go back about 6 or 7 years depending on when those buildings last got their round of new computers, new technology in those elementary schools. So they're kind of, it's their turn, they're up to be done, and then there would be other elementaries and middle schools to follow.
Mr. Jazwana.
I apologize for asking this question. Aren't aware of the technology plan, but I was curious about the quantity of computers, if those are simply replacing unit for unit, or are we gradually increasing the quantity of technology in each building as the demands for online testing and as online curriculum that we use in the buildings is increasing?
It's replacing the existing computers that are in the building. The elementary schools, some of them still have 1 and 2 computer labs to replace. Elementaries typically have roughly in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 computers in each classroom, so it would be replacing all those units. Plus, some of the schools now have carts that have about 30 laptops on each cart. So it is replacing all of those computers. We try to replace everything in a building at one time if we can. Just it's easier to just track it that way, that if you have all the hardware new at one time, then it's easier to keep track of things and know when to replace it in the future. Whether or not this is increasing the number of machines in those buildings, I'm not sure the answer to that question.
And that separately from Mr. Needham. Thank you.
Other questions, board?
If not, Mr. President, I would move that the board give its approval to submit the petition for the Common School Loan Fund as presented by Mr. Licata.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Licata. Action item number 2, approval of Department of Education Teacher of the Year contract. Mr. Doss.
President Turner, members of the board, and Dr. Woodson, I'm here tonight recommending approval of the Teacher of the Year agreement between MSDWT and the Department of Education. As you know, beyond the fact that Mr. Perkins was named Teacher of the Year, he has some responsibilities that to go along with that, and what those responsibilities are never really truly defined, and so we have been working with the DOE actually for months trying to come to an agreement in terms of what that looks like based on things that Mr. Perkins would like to do, and part of that is kind of spreading the word about Latin and in a sense a classical education, and but we've also tried to protect the interests of the district in that we know that every day that Mr. Perkins is out of the classroom, that's the day of lost instruction, and he knows that as the only Latin teacher at North Central. He is very territorial about his program and doesn't want to see that tarnished and doesn't want to see students put in a bad situation. So anyway, we've gone back and forth. We at one point had proposed that they allow us to hire a teacher and to co-teach with him, and so that the days that he was absent, that person would be able to step in because they planned together and that person has seen Mr. Perkins teach on a daily basis. Apparently that was a practice that the DOE had done in the past. But unfortunately, they were not willing to do that. And the irony is that if Mr. Perkins wanted to take a year off, that state law says that they'd have to pay for his salary and all the benefits related to that. So obviously, that's a very different cost. But for whatever reason, we couldn't get them to agree to that. So I think that the work that Mr. Perkins is going to be doing for the Department of Education is going to be relatively small compared to what his original ideas were. And but at the same time, he does have a number of commitments. There are a number of conferences. He leaves he leaves next Sunday for the National Teacher of the Year conference, and is gone during that time. And there's a conference in Arizona. There's a conference in Alabama that take place over the course of the next 9 months. And so basically, the contract speaks to the cost of covering the cost of these conferences, travel, lodging, et cetera, and then provides us with a stipend for a substitute in the event that he is indeed missing class. And like I said, the downside of that, it won't be more than a substitute teacher, and that's basically what they've allowed. And because obviously we can't hire someone and pay them the daily rate of a teacher sporadically over the course of the year. Our collective bargaining agreement doesn't allow us to do that. So anyway, we come to you today with a copy of the contract, and this is kind of the best we could do, but I think the downside is Mr. Perkins won't have an opportunity to share his message across the state. The good side is that we get Mr. Perkins on a high level in terms of the time that he'll be in front of students every year. But I'd be more than happy to field any questions that you might have.
Mr. Kite.
Just one, and if you would prefer not to answer this publicly, I certainly appreciate that, but
Sure.
I guess I'll ask it and see how it goes. Can you share anything at all about the DOE's, pausing for effect, thinking on not wanting to allow Mr. Perkins to be able to kind of accomplish what he originally desired?
I think the issue's one of a monetary piece. I think more than anything else, the piece that we do know is that the prior Teacher of the Year, who unfortunately served in that capacity under 2 different administrations, there were some financial pieces that the DOE had a difficult time resolving. And as a result, their legal team was extensive. I mean, Dr. Woodson and I met with them, and they brought 6 or 7 people and to meet with us about the contract prior to it having even been written. And so for whatever reason, I think that the stance they've taken on this is primarily one of financial piece. And I don't know that I sent them an email saying that I thought that their response was not good for students, and it was a shame that the DOE had taken that stand, and I didn't get a response. And so I don't know who's making the decisions. I don't think Superintendent Ritz has been a part of that, so I'm sure not making a point with her. But for whatever reason, they've not been willing to budge on that piece. So we're trying to make the best of the situation.
Thank you. I know it's never good when the other guy's team shows up with 6 or 7 lawyers, so but thanks for working so hard on it.
Exactly.
Mr. Deswanner.
As I understand it too, the contract does offer reimbursement for some days of in-state travel. So there will be some, just maybe not on the scope of what
Exactly.
Mr. Perkins and we were hoping he
Exactly.
might be able to do.
Yeah, he was very strategic. He had mapped out the state into kind of even like nine sections, and was going to be contacting schools to see if they'd be willing to come in and let him share his message with students and with teachers. And so he had a pretty grand plan, but I think that the fact that we're not going to be able to put someone in his classroom that would provide a good instruction for students is ultimately going to derail that plan.
Hopefully he can maybe connect with another in-district nationally recognized teacher, Mr. Auslander, and then really use the social media as a second alternative.
Exactly, and if you notice, the one piece in the contract speaks to him blogging on a weekly basis. Now, I was part of that conversation. That's language that we know we're not going to adhere to, because he said there may be weeks that I submit something on my blog 3 or 4 times, but there also might be a week that I don't do that. And that's, what I'm doing is going to dictate what I'm sharing out across the state. But they were okay with that.
If other board members do not have additional questions, I would move that we give our approval to the Department of Education Teacher of the Year contract as presented by Mr. Doss.
It's been moved and second. Are there any further questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Doss. Next agenda item is number 3, approval of K through 8 and 9 through 12 student handbooks. Dr. Millman.
Good evening, President Turner, members of the board, Dr. Woodson. I would first like to give kudos to Ms. Johnson, who is here as well this evening, who I think is perhaps one of the best administrative assistants in the district as well. You will see she's done a great deal of hard work in editing the handbook. Also have requested the presence of Mr. Brannigan to stay by my side this evening as you discuss the high school handbook, because he's been more intimately involved with that, with those changes. To bring to your attention just a few items that might have been of interest based on some new policies that were passed. I'll share with you the initial edits page is probably one of the most helpful attachments, which was the table that outlined the various changes. In the Adobe edit version, it can get a bit complicated. In many cases, you might see strike-throughs of language, but you'll need to follow the yellow brick road, so to speak, to see the language that will be inserted in those blue strike-through areas, for example. So that can get a bit complicated. The edits are actually a little bit more sequential in the table. But a couple things just to point out that we did address. Obviously, the eligibility rule, which was just recently passed by the board, that language was updated in this new version. We did also alter language of non-resident status for students to reflect the latest policy. In my version, that would show on page 9 of the handbook. On page 20, we also addressed some of the search and seizure policies that were recently approved by the board, outlining the parent needing to request the item being returned. If you recall that was from several board meetings ago, but updated that as well. Updated the definition of bullying, of course, which was a new legislation. That would be found on page 27. And I think those are kind of the highlights. Certainly there were a lot of grammatical edits. We've also made sure we've removed any references to ARC as being our student information system. Oftentimes we opted to be a bit more general in that language, just referring to it as a student information system. That allows us to communicate with parents, and depending on when this might be seen and when the communication comes out, we don't want to alarm anyone with some language which they may not be familiar with until we have an opportunity to communicate. So we did insert it in a few places, but not throughout the document. So I also did invite Ms. Johnson to join us this evening, because she can type faster than I can write. So she'll be able to take down any of the particular edits or questions that you may have, which I'll be happy to entertain at this time.
Ms. Manrotti.
Yes, ma'am.
On page 4, I have a name change. Yay!
Page 4.
Page 4 of the handbook,
Yes.
where the names, or where our names are.
Mm-hmm.
Change mine to doctor.
Yay. Okay. Thank you. Gladly do that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What a great feeling.
Yeah. And then I talked to you, and I can't go back and find the page number, about the, in this book, whether there was something in there about technology, cell phones, et cetera, iPads for
Right.
elementary and middle school kids.
because I couldn't find anything on
Right.
it.
Yeah, and I
Did you go back?
I did not have a chance to go back and dig in it deeply to find that. I know that we did have all of our principals review it, and I know that those decisions are made, locally. If they were here, they would contradict me, I'm sure, if I was incorrect. But at the elementary, there's less issues hallway-wise, for example. I mean, for Mr. Turner and Dr. Woodson, who enjoyed the visit to John Strange today, it would have been pretty obvious if one of those young men or women would have had a cell phone in their possession. And I know that you mentioned Mr. Oslander's class. Those are used in classrooms now and encouraged in that setting in a supervised nature. So
Okay.
it is a little bit different as far as their use widely among students in inappropriate ways. So I don't, at this time, think that the current language is an issue, but we would bring it up for our 15-16 conversation, certainly, and see if that's something that they would like to address.
Okay, it may not be
Yeah,
an
the
issue.
point's really well taken, though, yeah.
Mr. Deswanner?
The summary of district handbook changes, I'm assuming, applies only to the changes made in the district handbook and not the North Central handbook, correct?
Correct.
And is there a red line version that shows any of the changes that have been made to the North Central handbook other than the 2.0 changes that we had previously discussed?
The version I have has highlighted versions, which I'm assuming is the new and inserted language, but I did not see one that had what was removed or what that language actually replaced. I just had the highlighted version that you had.
The highlighter reflects the additions for the high school handbook. Any changes we did not leave the old language next to the new language.
And the version that I downloaded, I don't know about other board members, doesn't have highlights in it. Does yours? Did I miss something?
No, they didn't put, oh, you say it should have highlights in it?
Yeah,
I don't have
that's why I referred to that. Mine, when it printed out, had all the various yellow areas.
No, we don't
So,
have
The electronic version, it evidently didn't transfer.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, Rachel, you printed this one off of Board Docs, didn't you? I mean, I don't know if it was a version.
Clarify when we talk about the district handbook, because that is different for the first year. Before, we did have a district handbook for K-12, and North Central had a North Central handbook, so 9-12 had two handbooks. And we said that is not reasonable for students in 9-12 to have two handbooks. So everything has been pressed into the 9-12 handbook exclusively, and then there's a K-8 handbook, so that there's not a student having to monitor two handbooks.
President,
Yes.
this would be actually, I believe, for Mr. Brannigan. This is a very minor. Electronic devices, you need to capitalize the E. I don't have a page number in the version I'm looking at, but it's just a typo. Just needs a capitalization. Electronic devices, the E in electronics is not capitalized.
Other questions?
Well, going back to the highlighted version of the high school handbook, I know we have printing deadlines, but we don't need to distribute this till next year. Would it be possible to put off the district handbook does
Right.
for summer school? But it's not distributed until next fall.
Why it wouldn't have printed in the highlight version. Mine came right off Board Docs. Highlighted ones.
I personally, I'm just a little reluctant to approve a handbook that I don't know what changes we made.
Wanda's copy.
I
Wanda's
have
copy
the
is
yellow.
highlighted.
Yeah,
I don't remember mine being highlighted when I reviewed it.
yeah.
I don't know if it would have been an iPad issue. Mine was on a Mac, and it did it fine.
So it sounds like the changes were substantial just because you had to condense the handbooks.
It was more significant for Mr. Brannigan because he inherited quite a bit of language from what's now the K-8 handbook.
It wasn't changes to that language, it's just moving.
Sure.
Correct. So or it would be anything that we already changed, which you would see in this current K-8 version. But the changes are anti-bullying and anti-harassment language. there are some parking logistics I see that you've changed as well, which is
2.0,
normal. Mm-hmm.
Bullying, and Mr. Brannigan, do you have a list or know what else
Eligibility.
changed in the, content-wise in the North Central handbook?
Just examples, we did not have military recruitment in our handbook because it was always in the district handbook. We just transferred it right over.
I'm flipping for highlighting for Mr. Bram. I'm just standing in for,
Military recruitment
that's
needs
right.
capital.
That was only for the high school. So the information center, we added some additional language for information center regarding IDs and the need for IDs when you go up there. And the resources available to you. We just expanded on that rather than the short version that we had.
added immunization language, which would have been, which was,
Immunization came straight from the district handbook. We never had that in ours, so we had to add it.
that you already said, Learning Center.
Medication at school, once again, always in the district handbook. Nothing was ever in the North Centers, but we took the portion just specific for the high schools. Those are expectations a little bit different, and we added it for our kids. We clarified more so than we already had in our handbook about search and seizure. We took the language from the district handbook, which is much more expansive, added it to ours. Textbook rental fees, again, straight language over.
Yeah, most of them are K-8 that got moved over.
Yeah,
There's very few changes, otherwise it's just your list of clubs now. I think that was it. I mean, that's really,
we removed some of the clubs that were in the handbook because they no longer exist. And they haven't existed for a while, and without a sponsor or interested student, there was no point in leaving those in there anymore.
Sure. And my question, I'm sorry, was about substantive changes. So it sounds like,
other than moving K-8 language into the book, they're really, right. Mr. Brannigan's language around the eligibility is not quite as lengthy as it is in the K-8 because it did, again, kind of come straight out of the policy, so it was written that way. There was not, I guess it leaves that discretion to the administration depending on the student's situation, right? So,
Leaves us open for the Learning Center implementation that we talked about a few months ago.
but it spells out the season by season piece that we added to the policy last time. That's all included. And to make it clear about the initial eligibility and making it clear that that's season by season, that piece is in there as well.
I wasn't sure if you heard, military recruitment also needs capitalized. Here's great.
Yeah, I had, so far, under the electronics, it says CD player and radio on the bus. Kids have CD.
Some of our older students.
Older students?
30?
Believe it or not, we still have, I hate to say this, I saw a Walkman in the building, and tapes. Cassette tapes. Yeah. And it was, at first I thought it was an iPhone's cover, but it really was a Walkman.
Haven't you heard, Dr. Spanrati? Turntables are making a comeback.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they are.
And then under knitting club, the big title is spelled okay, but the first word of the smaller is the I and the N are transposed.
Don't you have these in alphabetical order? Find it. Here?
But we don't have page numbers on ours.
Not on the high school book, yeah, there's no.
Once it goes through the publisher,
They'll do that.
they do all that.
Oh.
They put numbers and whatnot in there.
Oh, we don't need
do
to
all
worry
the
about
proofing.
Oh, here we go. What was the typo there? I'm sorry, I finally found it.
Knitting
Yeah.
is spelled,
Oh,
not
this
the big word, but the little one. The one I have
Oh,
says
it's
K-I-N instead of K-N-I.
Perfect, thank you. I'll give Mr. Brannigan this version. Thank you.
Mr. Kite?
I'm just leaning forward.
Oh, okay.
I can't tell. I know this is exciting to watch.
It
but I
is.
didn't know if everybody kind of got through their changes and I was going to make a motion or if I should sit back.
Go ahead.
All right. Mr. President, I would move that the board of its approval to the K through 8 and separate 9 through 12 student handbooks as presented by Dr. Milliman with Mr. Brannigan's fine assistance.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Are there any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda, item number 4, action item, second reading and adoption of policies 3919.01/4419.01, privacy protections of self-funded group health plans, and 0151.1, Board of Finance of the Metropolitan School District of Washington Township, as presented by Dr. Milliman.
Thank you, President Turner. We have made the edits, I believe, requested by the board from the first reading. You note the Indiana code change now at the end of the section 0151.1 as requested, and just as an FYI, that does happen throughout the policy manual. That was a question from last time, so it's certainly consistent with what we have done as well. And I believe we made the edits suggested as well on the 3419 and 4419. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Board have questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion quickly.
Mr. President, I move approval of second reading and adoption of policies 3419.01/4419.01, privacy protections, self-funded group health plans, and 0151.1, Board of Finance of the Metropolitan School District of Washington Township, as presented by Dr. Milliman.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Are there any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Milliman.
Thank you.
And our last action item is number 5, approval of a modified 2014-2015 school calendar. Dr. Milliman.
Thank you, President Turner. Once again, I believe we made the requested edits from the previous board meeting. I think we have MLK Day on the correct date, as well as President's Day now for 2015. I believe that was the bulk of the changes, if not the complete request for changes. But happy to answer any questions you may have.
Board?
But just to note, the biggest change is that we reinserted flex days.
Yes.
That's the reason we're
Thank you.
readopting.
We are readopting, thank you, Mr. Deswaner, for the listening audience. We are adding flex days back into the calendar.
Excuse me. If there are no board questions, I would move that we approve the modified or remodified 2014-2015 school calendar as presented by Dr. Milliman.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Are there any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Milliman.
Thank you.
Now, the next item on our agenda is information item in the board discussion. I think I started down here. Let's go with Ms. Spanrati this time. We'll start with you.
Mr. President, Dr. Spanrati.
Oh, I'm sorry. Correction to the minutes.
We'll wait till Mother's Day.
Okay, all right. Thank you,
I didn't
Doctor.
get my robe yesterday.
Thank you, Dr. Hill.
Well, I know I missed the last meeting because I was out of town, and I made it to this meeting that I had originally planned not to be here, but I will miss the next one. Every other year, we just started at my work having Election Day off. And my year-end award ceremony for the program I direct is not on Tuesday, it's on Wednesday, because that's the only time we can get North Central available to us. So I will miss that because it starts at 7 o'clock in the next one. Went to the national conference. I can't remember what else I've done. Oh, school
met
board.
me
Study.
at Northview.
Oh, yes, Northview, and I've been at Fox Hill. That's all I can remember.
Okay, Mr. Kite.
Had an excellent visit. I won't steal his thunder. He'll say what he wants to say, but Mr. Deswaner and I had an excellent visit to Nora. And there were a couple of highlights that stood out for me. Teachers, I know the building is always busy, as all of our buildings are busy. I had several teachers who were involved in testing that day, but saw some excellent educators doing great things. I think they really picked a great sampler of things for us to see that day. And I was particularly excited to see the use of the computers, Promethean boards in the classroom by teachers, but also by students. Students really knew what they were doing. And I can't get the image of the alligator with the less than greater than sign in his open mouth out of my mind. It's just really, but so I enjoyed that very much, and I thought it was informative, the time that we had with the principal to ask and have questions answered. So I appreciate the administration setting that up. That was a great visit. For previous visits prior to this, the last school board meeting, of course. I also had the opportunity on April the 12th to, this is a busy school day, I think it was seems like it was a Saturday, to mulch at Greenbrier. Kathy Robbins, I've worked with her on her historic garden, one of the teachers there who's been with Greenbrier a very long time, mulching her historic trees garden. And I worked with this woman who, I guess it would be true of most people, is like half my size, and worked like somebody I've never seen work before. I would look and I'd be mulching a tree, and she'd be starting her second tree or what have you. She's just an amazing, just a parent out there with her 3 kids, a set of twins, so they probably appreciated the break. And then went from that to Spring Mills fundraiser, which was wonderful. I thought that was a great event. And managed to get the winning bid on a very unsexy prize, which was gutter cleaning, but I was happy to get that. And then one other. And then also the policy meeting, which I enjoyed with Dr. Millman and Dr. Hill, which was an excellent time as well. And then the Township Advisory Council, which was right before this, which I'm sure that the notes that Dr. Woodson will send out will well encapsulate what happened. But I thought that was a great opportunity for folks to ask questions directly. I know you've done it different ways. Dr. Woodson, you've had administrators make presentations, and this time it was, of course, just pure feedback and to hear from parents and to hear from other folks who were there, other stakeholders, is a good thing. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Kite. Mr. Deswiner.
I will echo Mr. Kite's comments about the visit to Nora, and as well say it was a wonderful visit to Spring Mill. And it just occurs to me that given the media commentary about the release of statewide teacher evaluation percentages and categories, that folks who would like to comment on that, I think, should really get into a classroom and watch what teachers are doing these days and talk to principals that are in charge of evaluating those teachers. I think it is easy to offer commentary without having been in those rooms and seen that work. So I greatly applaud the vast majority of our staff here at Washington Township, and I'm very proud to know that we are using that evaluation tool well for the first year, and as a means to improve instruction in this district.
Thank you. Dr. Hill.
Echo Mr. Kite on policy. Had the last IB Head Council meeting. Had a very productive day going through the inquiry information and some editing, but very lively discussion. Wonderful visits to Greenbrier and Allisonville and Northview. And lastly, I wanted to put on the record and encourage anyone who listens to this to begin following Mr. Perkins's blog. He's trying to make it well known that he will be blogging consistently during his visit and the events in Washington, D.C., meeting the president, having dinner with the Bidens in their home.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
And quite a variety of events scheduled.
So
and,
there's no truth to the rumor that the blog will be written all in Latin.
Well, I won't swear to that. I pull out a Latin translation dictionary periodically when I hear from him. So, but that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. As far as what I did I went to parent council a week ago, and they are moving forward. I know we've talked about the parent council in the past and they're trying to find their way or their direction, if you will. I think they've kind of found it for now. They actually found some folks, and they'll have to vote on it, but I think they found some people because they were looking for officers within parent council, and I think they found some parents to step up for that for the next year. I believe the president, Grant Remington, is going to be president for the next year. He's going to do a 2-year term so we can keep it moving. And they will start working on, I think they have started working on searching for, putting together their committee for school board elections. So they will work on that as well with some, potentially some help from some folks that have done it in the past to kind of give them guidance on how to do it or how to set it up. I visited as well Spring Mill with Mr. Deswaner. I will say that, and I went to John Strange today. I'll group these two, and I echo Mr. Deswaner's statement about getting into the schools and seeing teachers at work, but also seeing the kids, how they interact with the teachers. Two things happened, and basically it's on vocabulary. Maybe I need to go to vocabulary class. But in Spring Mill, in the kindergarten class, they were working on a particular story as a group, and somebody asked why certain people couldn't, or certain animal couldn't reach the moon, and they had a couple of answers. You can't jump that high, et cetera. And then one person said gravity, and then another student asked, raised their hand and said, well, what is gravity? And then one of the other students answered it and gave the definition of gravity in the kindergarten class. And I thought that was pretty impressive to me. I'm sorry. And then today at John Strange, Dr. Milliman and I were in a class, and a math class, was it second or third grade? Second grade class. And they started talking about algorithms in second grade when they're adding numbers. I'm thinking, man, I think I was in middle school or high school. But although I did get a Washington Township degree, so don't. But I thought that was pretty impressive. So for people to talk about in a negative light what's being done in public schools, you almost have to say they haven't been in a public school or a public school like Washington Township has. So thanks for those visits. I think I have another one later on. I think it's Allisonville, I believe, or somewhere I have to go to. But and as for the board, just a reminder that we are going to have a study session on the 29th, 5:30, to look at board docs, demonstration of it. So please remember to put that down. It's 5:30, correct? I think it is 5:30. Any other items good for the order? Just will say that we will adjourn this meeting and then convene this study session in about 5 minutes after this.
Mr. President, I move for adjournment.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries. We're adjourned.